IB Nation Sports Talk. It is the Friday Rapid Fire Show, and we are up and rolling along with Vince DeDario and Jesse Stires. I'm Sean Stires, and yes, my backdrop is not the same as if I was sitting in my little office space at home. I am still in Miami, Florida, with the Notre Dame women's basketball team. They won last night, and rather than fly 3+ hours back to South Bend last night, and then another hour and a half or so to Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow for Sunday's game. And then obviously back after that, we stayed down here in Miami for an extra day. And I'm not going to say that I'm disappointed down here.
You know, technology and e-learning, obviously that e-learning is like, 12 and below, like 12th grade and below. But still in college, you can get a lot accomplished with the old laptop. That's right. Man, they're good for you. Good for you. That's all I
we're staying. It's interesting. Like where we're staying, the hotel is right, probably 200, maybe 300 yards from the Watsco Center where they played last night. But it's that close. But because of the two main streets out in front, it's like a 10-minute drive to get there because you have to go. Like down a few blocks and then turn around and, all this different stuff across traffic and all that.
Bunch of one-way streets and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. But the perk is because it's 70+ degrees and not 8 inches of snow on the ground, like, back home where you guys are right now, I got to put on a T-shirt and walk for, around for a couple days, the last 2 days on the Miami campus. Very nice campus, I have to say.
So
good scenery.
Did you? You're telling me with your day off today that you took part in trying to figure out who stole the Cavender's car?
I did. I was on the case. May have cracked it. I don't know.
Cavender's car got found, Jesse. Don't worry about her. All right, it's Carson's cars that we got a problem with.
That's right.
The Lamborghinis.
You know what I found was interesting? Were you guys, I don't know if you were able to watch because it was on ACC Network Extra last night. So that means it was, were you guys able to watch it all?
I tried. I could not find it.
Okay. So Carson Beck, the former Georgia quarterback, one of the many celebs in attendance last night. And he had like the high rolling front row seats. Interesting, though, that he only sat in that seat courtside. He had like the Snoop Dogg, remember, like Notre Dame USC. Yep. He had the Snoop Dogg kind of seat. He was only there for the first half and then wasn't there in the second half, but then he showed up again at the end of the game. So I don't know, maybe he was filing the police report, during all that. But I mean, it was like star power there last night. Carson Beck was there. Jake Ferguson, the Dallas Cowboys tight end, was there. Of course, each of those guys is dating a Cavender twin. But then you had like a who's who of former Notre Dame women's basketball players there. Arike Agumbawale, Jewel Lloyd, Jackie Young, Marina Mabry, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Ruth Riley Hunter, Julie Henderson.
Wow.
They were all there.
Are they all in
Celebrity Row last night?
It is.
They all live down there?
There's this. Have you heard about the new women's pro league? Like the off-season pro league. It's a 3-on-3 league.
No.
It's called Unrivaled, and it's down here it's based here in Miami.
Gotcha.
And so they're all down here playing in that league, right? Gotcha. With the exception of Ruth, of course.
Right.
But Ruth actually works for the Miami Heat, and the team practiced in their facility today, which was kind of cool. And Ruth hosted them over there.
I actually see the tweet right now as you're talking. There it is.
There you go. So yeah, it's like everybody was down here. Basically, it was everywhere awesome. I looked. Chase Claypool was even here last night, or there last night, whatever. He was at the game. Wow. And I looked at him at first, and I'm like, he looks a little bit like Jaden Greathouse, but that ain't Jaden Greathouse. And I looked, and I was like, Chase Claypool. I knew that it was, a former Notre Dame guy. So Chase Claypool was there as well. And then, have either of you watched the series Orange is the New Black?
No, but I know of it. It's
okay.
Women's prison, isn't it?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Jesse, have you?
I watched the first season, definitely. I think the second season, and then I fell off around that time.
Okay. The actress who plays Tasty in Orange is the New Black, Danielle Brooks is her name. She was a guest of Julie Henderson last night there as well.
Really?
So it's like, yeah, so she was there. It's like, and she's in, if you've seen the group photos from the locker room last night, she's wearing, I think, a yellow T-shirt. She's in one of the group photos with like all the former players in the current team. So
nice.
Everywhere.
You're just living the dream down there, man.
Telling you. Yeah, so we're leaving tomorrow morning for NC State. The dream dies. We go to Raleigh.
I mean, Raleigh's not exactly South Bend though either. So
no, it's
you're okay.
From what I understand though, the Duke radio guy told me earlier this week that they were getting some snow down there. I think it might maybe hit the 40s this weekend, so maybe the snow is melted. We'll find out when we get there.
30 and sunny right here in good old South Bend / Granger, Indiana. So it was, I walked outside today for the first time in like a week and you could like feel the sun, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it felt like a heat wave because it's been freaking bitterly cold up here for the last few days. And, door duty at 8 a.m. Gets me going on all the wrong directions in the morning. But it actually felt good walking to the car this afternoon. And that's saying something when it's 30. But it was 30 and sunny, so at least you got a little bit of vitamin D.
Vince, I felt the same way leaving the office today. Like when I leave the office, I get pissed because it's like cold. I'm like, gosh, you just get mad walking to your car because it's cold. And today I braced myself. I was like, you know what? It's Friday. Like, let's not be mad about this. Walk outside. It's like, oh, a little bit of sunny. I see the snow's trying to melt a little bit. I'm like, all right, I can deal with this.
Right? You can tell we live in the Midwest when it's like, yes, 30 degrees. Woohoo!
Yeah, baby.
No doubt. Well,
it was like Miami. 20s most of the week. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awful.
Well, trust me, I was blowing snow when I was at home this week before we came down here. So, all right, we got a lot to get to. I mean, a lot to get to.
We do
today. We got 3 guys here today. I don't know how long we're going to be here, but
it's whatever.
Hey,
let's go.
Have fun. Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So, which are you most confident in next season? Jaden Greathouse will have at least 700 receiving yards, or Drayk Bowen will have at least 100 tackles.
I have fallen into this trap too many times, Sean Stires, and while I am very confident,
you just ask these questions to set us up.
I know. I have been very confident in quarterback play. I'm very confident in quarterback play for 2025. But I am not going to go down that rabbit hole of predicting all kinds of crazy stats offensively for the wide receivers. I'm not going to do it. So I think Drayk Bowen, with a combination of a full spring, and obviously a full season under his belt as a starting middle linebacker, then a full spring with no baseball, he's just focused on football, I think he goes over 100 tackles. I think it's going to be a breakout year for Drayk Bowen.
Is this I always got to make sure and reread things.
Jesse's going to ask a Vince question here.
Is this regular season or do I get the whole season?
You get the whole season. You get the whole season, just like this year. You get the whole season. Right. It all counts.
I am more confident in Jaden Greathouse, but I think they're both going to do it at the end of the year. I think Jaden Greathouse was on the verge last season. He started to play his best football against the top opponents. And I think you're going to have a quarterback that is going to get the ball distributed more, especially downfield. And I think Jaden Greathouse has a lot of potential for those big plays like we saw against Penn State and Ohio State in the national championship. And so I think both guys are actually going to hit this milestone. But I do believe, I know Notre Dame defensively, they're going to have, a rotation of linebackers kind of like they did this season. So I think that, Drayk Bowen should see a lot of playing time still, but I don't know. I just feel like we haven't had a wide receiver do this in, X amount of years. And I feel like it's finally time to kind of hit that other side, right? Like when you constantly aren't doing it, eventually you got to do it.
It's got to happen eventually,
right? And I think Jaden Greathouse's skills line up with a guy who I think he's gonna be pushing close to 1,000. To be honest,
I twisted my brain to come up with a question that could twist your brains a little bit. So I don't know if the numbers, were like too easy or, like where they were. But I mean, like Greathouse had 592 yards and almost half of it came in the last 2 games of the playoffs. And like I've said before, I feel like he is sufficiently, we can call him a breakout player, even though both of you guys might not necessarily agree with that. We can call him broken out by now. And I feel like he is shown, especially with a quarterback who is, when he drops back to pass, he's going to look to pass first before, taking off and running with the football. So I feel really confident in that because of the fact that he had almost 600 yards as it was. And, again, until the last 2 games, it's not like he was putting up monster numbers anywhere along the line. And then Bowen, here's what gives me pause about whether or not Drayk Bowen can do it, because he had 78 tackles last season. Kaiser led the team with 90. Watts was next with 82. So obviously you've got Kaiser gone now. Watts is going to be gone, even though I feel like, Schuler and whoever ends up next to him, they'll obviously, chew up quite a bit of those as well. But then you've also got Kingston Viliamu-Asa, who's going to kind of eat up some of that real estate. Like it feels like he's the logical guy to step into, like we're going to see more of Bowen and KVA out there together, just like we saw so much of Bowen and Kaiser. And, like, does that 5-man rotation continue next season? Will that eat into some of Drayk Bowen's production? So I feel like he's going to be really close to that number, especially if they go even to the semifinals or even the quarterfinals next year. Like you get a couple extra games at the end of the season as opposed to just one bowl game. But I just feel even more confident in Jaden Greathouse because of the fact that, like, if they're rotating guys again, I feel like Bowen is still going to have a really great season, but like, what that does to that tackle number could be impacted, by all those extra guys being up there.
I think Bowen stays on the field. I think they rotate guys around him. Okay. I don't know. And we'll see.
You see it more like you see him kind of being in that Kaiser spot.
Yeah.
The rotation is more with the other guys.
Then. Yeah, I think that's what I see happening this year. Like I said, especially with him being able to focus without baseball and all of that. And I'm disappointed he's not playing baseball, but that's just because I love baseball.
Right.
But I think for his football career, this is probably the best move for him. And he didn't play a bunch last year. So, it's a lot of time to be giving up for the payout. You know what I mean? Right. And I don't mean financially. You know what I mean? With playing time. I just think that's what he's going to be. And so, I don't know if they're going to continue having like that 5-man rotation. Like, was that just kind of for this year?
Well, I mean, you still got Osbury, Sneed,
right?
Bowen,
You got Madden Faramo coming into the picture as well.
AVA. You got 5 young, healthy guys.
When they had 5 last year, and then somebody got hurt.
Right.
So I don't know.
But it also,
we'll see how it goes.
Like the running backs, kept them fresh. For as many games as they ended.
No, it totally
playing,
did.
So.
Yeah,
and then to Vince's point, you still got to have the guy on the field that knows everything at all times, and that's going to be Drayk Bowen.
It would seem like that's Drayk Bowen. That's right. But even Kaiser only got to 90 last year, and
that's
was
true.
That guy.
That's
but
true.
I do feel like
and that's with 16 games. So.
Right.
Kaiser's a good athlete, but I think Bowen's more athletic than Kaiser.
True. Very true. I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of baseball, before we move on,
oh boy,
they hit a walk-off against Iowa in the 11th inning.
I know it was 1-1. Okay.
Are we going to be doing Cubs updates all through spring?
No, that was Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Oh, Notre Dame did. Oh, that's right. I forgot they were playing Iowa today.
Walk-off in the 11th inning against Iowa.
I was actually I was working out in the hotel gym this afternoon, and this guy, I had like a Notre Dame shirt on, and he was like, how's the baseball team going to be this year? And I'm like, well, we're all hopeful, but, who knows? And he's like, I'm an umpire. I'm scheduled to be up there in May. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Hello.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That was random.
Yeah. Very random. And I forgot to ask him, but he must be here because, again, we're also right across the street from where the Hurricanes, Alex Rodriguez Stadium, where the Hurricanes play baseball, and they're playing Princeton tonight.
Okay.
So he might be in town working that game. I didn't get
He might be like an ACC umpire, that kind of a deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Well,
yeah.
I think this is not to go too far into the weeds with baseball, but I think this is kind of a very important season for Coach Stifler.
It is.
And what he's trying to do at Notre Dame. And if
Year
he's going to
3.
be able to continue doing that at Notre Dame.
I agree. I think
last year was rough.
I think it's pretty close to make or break.
Yeah,
honestly.
last year was rough. And they're going to have a lot of young guys that they're going to play. And you're going to see kind of what this program is under Coach Stifler in year 3,
So it's really interesting because I feel like Link, it was kind of a double-edged sword, his time here at Notre Dame, because you're very appreciative of them and what they accomplished in getting to the College World Series and all of those things, and the success that they had so quickly. But then the double-edged sword part of it is it just shows all the other preceding coaches that it can be done, and it shows Notre Dame faculty that it can be done. And so when you're already in year 3 and you're not showing signs of turning it around, it's like, well, the last guy got to super regionals in year 2 and, basically lost to the best team in the country. And now year 3, he goes on to the College World Series. So it's like, it's
Jacks
not
up
an
the
unattainable
expectations.
thing.
Sure.
That's right.
Notre Dame.
That's, like when Maneri left to go to LSU. And by the way, I don't know if you saw Maneri's in his first season at South Carolina now. He moved into 6th place on the all-time Division I wins list this week. Congratulations
Notre
to him.
Dame.
Go Cox. That's right. But yeah, wish he was here. But yeah, when Maneri left, all anybody wanted to ask Dave Schrag and the guys on his staff were, you going to Omaha this year? You going to Omaha this year? And, for them, it just should have been, are you getting back to the NCAA tournament this year? Because they never did that in the 4 years, that they were there. But because Maneri got them there, obviously, that upped the expectation and everybody got used to that winning. And you're absolutely right, Jesse. Like, what both Maneri, because, look, we've talked about the things that work against a program like Notre Dame, not just that you're in the North, but with, I'll be curious to see what the scholarship situation looks like since, all these changes with these
all
sports.
These new rules. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like how much Notre Dame is actually able to put into baseball for all of that. But, the private school and you're in the North and the weather and all those different things. But I said this when Link Jarrett, when I had Paul on our very first show, Maneri on, it's what both of those guys proved is if you have the right guy, you can do it. All that other stuff, you have the right guy, you can work around that, So now the question, it really becomes, is Stifler the right guy? Because you should at least, they've proven you should at least be in the NCAA tournament on average every 3rd year here, if you're the right guy. There's no other excuses after what Link Jarrett did in such a short amount of time. All right.
Agreed.
That's our Notre Dame baseball rant for the day.
Hey, just come back for more because we'll have it. Don't worry about that.
Right. That's right.
There'll be plenty. They played a lot of guys actually today.
And go check out the interview with Brady Gumpf that I had a couple of weeks ago too.
That is a really good one, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So SEC and Big Ten athletic directors left their meeting in New Orleans this week saying they're in favor of changing the seeding for the college football playoff for this upcoming 2025 season. If they make a change, the seeding would go directly off the rankings, 1 through 12, rather than how it was done this year by guaranteeing the highest ranked conference champions get those first round buys. Now, it's not a done deal, though, because all 10 of the FBS conference commissioners and Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bevacqua would have to vote unanimously to make any format changes this season and for this season only. So my question to you guys, scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you they will make this change for this upcoming 2025 season, Jess?
Yeah, I think I would put this at around a 7 out of 10. I think largely the playoff format was a success this past season, especially when you introduce home playoff games. But, I think the biggest gripe with the format last year was, the kind of jumping of teams or the reseeding of teams because of these conference championships and automatic top 4 bids. And I think if you remove that, I think most people would say, unless you're the SEC and Lane Kiffin, that the playoff format was a hit. It was a great success. And I think they got out of it what they wanted. And I think ultimately, not allowing those automatic bids would appease the people like Ole Miss and South Carolina, because I think that would ultimately give them a better chance of getting one of those last couple seeds that they missed out on this season. So, I think it's going to happen because I think the main reason I think it's going to happen is because there's going to be further changes down the road. And so I don't think that they're going to be stuck with something just because it was already in play, essentially. I think this format is going to be kind of ever changing, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think it's going to be something over the next few years as it continues to kind of expand, that they're going to tinker with some things here and there and ultimately try to get, the best format at the end of the day. I don't think that they're closed off to criticism or, tinkering at the end of the day. I think they're willing to be receptive of change.
Give it a 2. I'm low, like a 1.5, 2.
I was curious to see where you were going to land. Jesse started at a 7, and Vince is coming in at 2.
Yeah, there's no way that the small conferences are going to go for this. Zero.
And that's
chance.
what I think as well. That's what I think. Why should they give away their loan benefit? Right?
Yeah, exactly. I
think that you could get in. I just don't think it gives you the top 4 seed. I think
but then they don't get a bye.
Right?
Why would you vote against that?
But they're still going to get into the.
But why would they vote against getting a bye? Why would they vote against that?
Why would they take the bye away from themselves?
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
This is the one and only time that those small conferences have any power, and I would wield it like He-Man's sword. Like there is no chance that I would let the big conferences bully me into voting for something that hurts me. There's no way. Now, for 26, when it just has to be a majority, you're going to get outvoted and you're going to have no power whatsoever. And you're going to be happy that you at least get a team in. But there's no way that they're going to say, yeah, take away our bye, take away our chance at having a bye. There's no way that's going to happen. It'll only be for a year, but there's no way. I don't see it.
I think mine's at a 3, I think. So Jesse's 7, Vince is 2, mine's at a 3. Because the only, how far will the SEC and the Big Ten go to leverage this? Because you're right. This is only, it's a 1-year deal. So, on the one hand, you could say, well, look, you're only going to get the first round bye this season. So what difference does it make? Just go along with us on this, vote for this. But would the SEC and the Big Ten go so far as to say, look, MAC and Mountain West, conference commissioners, if you don't vote for this, when we do our next contract for 2026, when they're probably going to expand this thing, either you're out or you're, we're not going to give you an automatic bid if you don't vote for this.
That's the only way.
We're not going to include you.
Strong arm them. That's the only way. I mean,
that's what it feels like to me. Because even if you're the Big 12 or the ACC, because again, this has to be unanimous as of right now with a 12-team format, and you're not guaranteed a second team in. Neither of those conferences got a first round bye, but you still have a chance with this current configuration, if you're one of those conferences, to maybe get one of those first round buys. So again, it's do the SEC and the it's well, this is what we want now, so we're going to swing our things around, and we're going to force this, we're going to force you to take it. Are they going to say, hey, all right, ACC, Big 12, Mountain West, whoever, ACC, Big 12 specifically, we're not going to give you that extra guaranteed bid next year. We're not going to include that as part of the deal if you don't vote for this right now. So, how badly do the SEC and the Big 10 want it right now for just this 1-year deal?
Just 1 year. I don't know that they're going to use that kind of capital to try to force the hand for this year. Look, at the end of the day, I do think it should be 1 through 12. I do. I think it should be 1 through 12. And I think, that 12th spot, if a group of 5 is outside the top 12, should get that 12th spot. I think that's the way it should be. I don't think conference champions should get the bye. I just don't see it changing for 25.
And I'm the same way because again, the fact that it has to be a unanimous vote to make this happen, unless they're able to keep everybody, and again, like unless they try to strong arm them with, what's coming up with the next contract and the whole thing, I'm far less confident than Jesse is that this will happen for this year. Because I agree. Like, who knows if you're, Boise State or you're, whoever happens to, that group of 5 champ that happens to get in there this year, like maybe that bye is your ticket to at least, getting to the quarterfinals, if not making a little, because then all you've got to do is win a couple games, or I guess you've got to win what? You've got to win 3 games still instead of 4, right? To get to the championship game at that point. So if they make the change to go directly to the seeding, either for this season or for 2026 and beyond when they start that new format, that could mean that Notre Dame could be eligible for a first-round bye. Like I've seen, this being reported that Notre Dame would, be back in play to get a first-round bye. So my question is, would you rather have a first-round home playoff game like Notre Dame did this year, or would you rather have the first-round bye?
We beat you down pretty good on that last one, Jesse. I'll give you first go here.
I would say I would take – so the fan in me wants the home game because I think it's a more – like I went to the game and just everything was awesome about that day. Hanging out with my friends, tailgating, meeting up a lot of friends I hadn't seen in a long time. Everyone's coming back to South Bend. It was like a reunion in the freaking Notre Dame football parking lot, if we're being honest, right? And then – you go to the game, and that's an experience, and it's financially more reasonable than it would be to go down to, the Orange Bowl, the national championship, whatever it might be. And so you get all those things in one, and as a fan, it's like, yes, this is what I want every year. But on the flip side of it, you have to think about, probably what's better for Notre Dame overall. And I think getting time off, resting, healing up, those sort of things are kind of more important. And so I would always take the first round bye because I want the path that's the least resistant to get to the national championship, right? But then kind of be devil's advocate of my own argument, all the teams that had byes were 0-4 this season. And so I think that's a product of the conference champions getting the automatic bid instead of having the very best teams at the top. So I think that was kind of, an outlier, I guess you could say. So to wrap this up, because I feel like I've really
done
myself in.
Just to piggyback on that, Jonathan says, didn't everyone with a bye lose? What you just mentioned right there. Yes, this year they did, but that doesn't mean every year you're going to lose just because you have a bye. Right.
That's because conference champs got the top 4 and they weren't better.
Right. And I mean, look, Arizona State, Boise State, again, because of the, right. Arizona State and Boise State are the reason the SEC and the Big Ten want to change the format now because they didn't deserve first-round byes. They both lost because they didn't deserve to be top 4 teams. They played better teams. They lost, even though ASU ultimately gave Texas a good game. Georgia obviously played Notre Dame. Slugfest. Notre Dame ended up winning. Oregon's the most confounding one because they played such a close game with Ohio State the first time, and then they just got dominated the second time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm with Jesse on this one. I didn't think I would enjoy the home playoff game and the home playoff atmosphere as much as I did. I would vote for that every single time, and I would actually be okay with Notre Dame saying, "Look, we'll still remain on the outside of the bye situation. Like the highest you can get is 5th. Like I'm okay with that, if you can guarantee that they don't have to join a conference." Like, if you guarantee that we still have access to the playoff, we don't need a bye.
That's enough.
I'm okay with that trade-off.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay with that trade-off based on what I saw in that game. Just the atmosphere, the excitement level, and a lot of it was because it was IU and it was an in-state rivalry, and I get all of that. But that home playoff atmosphere was unbelievable. Like, it was one of the best atmospheres I've ever been a part of, and when it comes to a sporting event, I would vote for that every time. I want that every single time. It was
my
different.
favorite Notre Dame football game I've ever been to.
Yeah, no doubt. It was different than going to New Orleans, and it was different than going to Atlanta. Those were big games, and it was a big deal. it didn't feel the same as having that game on campus. Like I want that again. So I would be fine with Notre Dame having a home playoff game.
So you're both so not just fine, but if you had to choose one or the other, you're taking the playoff game over getting the first round bye.
I am. Yeah.
The home playoff game. Interesting. Yep. Interesting. I thought it was cool. I mean, just like you guys. I mean, it was a great environment. Arguably the best environment ever at Notre Dame Stadium. And you've heard a lot of national people who were there for the game talk about it that way as well. It was great. But I want the path that gives me the best chance to get back to the national championship game, to get out with nobody injured and play in that national championship game. Let's remember, Riley Mills suffered a season-ending knee injury in the Indiana game in that great, electric atmosphere home game. So Marcus Freeman's going to tell you that, there's no benefit one way or the other. He's going to take the path that they're given, and that's fine. As a coach, that's what, that's what your answer has to be. But if getting a bye gives me a better chance to get to the national championship game with fewer guys injured and win a national championship game, that's what I take. As great as the home atmosphere is, that's what I take. Now, that being said, if it ends up being a 14-team field next year, there's only going to be 2 teams getting a bye in that scenario. So, while Notre Dame will still have an opportunity to get a bye, there's still a very good chance that they'll also get to host a home playoff game. And so, I think as this thing continues with its expanded format, I think we're going to see a little bit of both over the years, where they'll, some years they'll be hosting a game, and then there'll be other years where they've got a first round bye because they're going to end up being one of those top 2 seeds. But I would take the bye if that gives me a better chance.
Believe me, I want to
the home game is in the whole thing.
I get it.
Right.
Yeah. I totally understand where you're coming from. From a competitive standpoint, I get it. You get another week off and all of that. I totally understand where you're coming. I'm being selfish when I say I want that atmosphere again. I'll be the first one to admit it. Like I want to experience that again. You know what I mean? So I'm cool with it.
So a couple questions popped in when we were talking, as we've been talking about the playoff and the whole thing. TD4ND says if they go to the top rankings, it gives conferences incentives to get rid of the conference championship games. And Joe is asking, so are they going to do away with the conference championship games? As of right now, the answer to that is no. And in fact, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Tony Petitti, who's the Big Ten Conference commissioner, not only does he, still plan on having a conference championship game, even with these, guaranteed 4 bids for the Big Ten, potentially, he wants, like a 3 versus 6 and a 4 versus 5 playing games to get those 2 Big Ten slots so he can sell them, to ESPN or Fox or whoever it happens.
So in other words, have 2 conference championship games, basically.
So can't we say though that when people like James Franklin make those out-of-pocket comments directed at Marcus Freeman, why are you directing him at Marcus Freeman?
Right.
Direct him at your conference commissioner.
Exactly. Talk to your conference commissioner. They're the ones putting you in that situation. I've said it a million times, and I'll keep saying it. No one's requiring these conferences to have a conference championship game. The only reason they do it is because of the TV revenue that they get for playing them. That's the only reason.
Oh, for sure.
They have them. They don't, especially now. They don't have to have them, but that's why they have them, because they get that big TV revenue. And obviously, they sell tickets and everything else as well, but it's the TV revenue that makes them the most money, and that's why they have them. So if they keep holding these conference championship games, it's on them. And again, that's like, don't you have something better? When you're talking to Notre Dame about you have to be in a conference because, like you said, James Franklin and the Narduzzi's and everybody else. It's like no one's forcing you to expand your conference. No one's forcing you to have these conference championship games. That's right. That's right. And by the way, there was a question that popped in from Barry. Spring football for Notre Dame starts March 18th after spring break. It will start on March 18th.
Which is a Tuesday.
Yes.
And also the day after St. Patrick's Day. So guess who is probably not having fun on St. Patrick's Day? Notre Dame football team.
That's right. Or maybe they will, and who knows?
St. Patrick's Day is an amateur's holiday to go out and have fun.
Whoa,
amateurs.
Whoa.
What is the
our
pro
office
holiday
literally
to go out and have fun?
Our office talked about taking a half day of PTO on St. Patrick's Day just to go out to bars.
And what is the average age of your office?
I put the median at like 40-ish, 35.
40. So you got people that are 60
35?
in your office? They're
Pushing. Yeah, we got someone who's okay, probably like 33 would be the median age. We got some 50s. We got some 20s.
You realize you're the math major, right? Like,
oh yeah, I'm trying to do all of it in my head right now.
How many people are in your office? I'm going to figure out how hard
About
this
15.
Okay, all right. I'll give that to you then.
We got a couple. We probably got at least 2 or 3 guys in their 60s. Maybe
Let me
4.
ask this question. Sean Stires, if you are home and you have, no plans, you don't have a game to call or anything like that, are you going out on St. Patrick's Day?
Absolutely not.
I rest my case.
Are you kidding? The desire to do that died so long ago,
Correct. Yes, thank you.
I mean, it's one thing to go out, have a few beverages every now and then, and
Right.
even if get a little tip. But like, why do I need to be with a million other slobber, knockered morons?
Thank you. Amateur hour.
That's right.
Thank you for backing up my point.
Okay, so that backs up your case for like the amateur holiday. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. It is amateur hour. Like I don't need any of that.
Hey, when I went out for St. Patrick's Day 2 years ago in Cleveland, I ended up meeting the mayor of Cleveland. So
he's out there looking for votes, baby. Did he get yours?
He did.
There you go.
Were they dingusing out there? Were they doing the dingus?
That's a very South Bend thing, by the way.
Well, isn't it like South Bend and Buffalo? Like, aren't they the two? Like,
is that what it is?
That's what I've heard. It's like there's only like 2 or 3 cities I've heard.
Okay. Yeah, I know South Bend's a big one. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. Former Notre Dame offensive lineman Zack Martin has announced his retirement after 11 seasons with the Dallas Cowboys. The thing you will remember him for the most is blank.
I will start this one just because I have a lot less memories than the two of you.
That's right.
Because my memories of Zack Martin ended when he left Notre Dame. I mean, let's be honest. Like, I knew he was an all-pro, with Dallas and all of that stuff. I knew he was one of the best guards in the league for his entire career. Yes. But, I mean, for me, the history is him and his brother, both Indiana guys coming to Notre Dame, both impactful offensive linemen. Like, that's the memory I have of the Martins in general. And obviously he was the better of the two. But, that's my memory of the Martins. I will let you guys take it from here because he was a Cowboy a lot longer than he was a Fighting Irishman.
So the two things that come to mind when I think of Zack Martin, the first and foremost is I think the more kind of national one where he's got like 7,000 pass pro snaps and not a single holding call.
Right.
Like that's
insane.
That's like
insane.
I don't think anyone's ever going to do that again.
7 all-pro
7 holding calls in his whole career.
Calls. Yes.
9 all-pro appearances.
That's going to be the one I think a lot of people, remember him for. But the memories that always come back to me is a young, just everyone kind of close their eyes here for a little bit. It's 8 years ago. Zack Martin is hitting his prime. A young Ezekiel Elliott has fresh legs in the NFL. And Zack Martin is pulling as a guard around the corner. And he's just clobbering, eating cornerbacks, eating safeties, eating linebackers. I mean, not even like getting in their way, like full on just clobbering guys, like that's what I think of Zack. And then you got Zeke hitting.
I'm happy and sad all at once, just thinking about all that, what used to be and what is now.
But those visions of seeing a young Zack Martin pull around the corner and just eat up anything in front of him, and
just trucking,
Elliott
just
goes running right by him. Like
That's
those
right.
were the days.
Oh.
Those were the days.
I'm surprised I'm not crying already right now. Here's it starts with this, and this gives me this little sliver of hope for the Cowboys organization because Stephen Jones, who he and his brother, Jerry Jr., were apparently the ones pushing for Brian Schottenheimer to be hired as head coach. And flashback to Zack Martin's draft, it was Johnny Manziel in that draft. And Stephen Jones had to talk Jerry Jones Sr. out of drafting Johnny Manziel when they already had Tony Romo.
There was a lot of talk about that one. Yeah.
And drafting Zack Martin instead. It started with that. Think about what that line would have looked.
I mean, 2014 draft?
It would have been the 2014 draft, I think. Because I think
Zeke and Dak were 2016.
Right. We'll do the math what 11 seasons is. 24, 3, 2, 1, 20. 2014. Yes. Nice. The best offensive lineman in the NFL during his time in the NFL. End of story. There's no debate. And again, I realize, so many Notre Dame people love Quentin Nelson.
Well, he can pass the torch now.
Quentin Nelson is great.
Yeah.
He's kind of tapered the last couple of years after a huge start to his career. And that's the thing about Zack Martin. Not just that he was, flat out dominant like Quentin Nelson. He was just the most consistent, the best balanced. He was a tactician on the offensive line. And, the 11 seasons, 9, all Pro Bowl, all pro selections, and not just Pro Bowl, but all pro, meaning, it's like the essentially of all, the equivalent of all American teams, he was 7 times first team all pro, twice second team all pro. And if not for injuries, he probably would have got a couple more as well, because that's the thing. I mean, that's why he's retiring so relatively young. He's only 35. He's just, he's had to battle through a lot of injuries the last few seasons. And, to me, he's, again, not just the best offensive lineman across the NFL in his time out there. He's probably, and not even probably, he's the best Dallas Cowboys offensive lineman since those great wall lines of the Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith era when they had, Eric Williams and Kevin Gogan and, Nate Newton and Stepnoski and all those guys. He's the best offensive lineman the Cowboys have had since then. If he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, then people voting for the Hall of Fame should just all give up their votes because, the anchor of the offensive line, Zeke Elliott, like Jesse was just talking about when he was out there pulling in front of Elliott and the whole thing, he was supposed to be the last piece, to give Tony Romo, the protection, and they were going to lean on Elliott and all these things. And then literally Romo breaks his back in an exhibition game and his career is over. But, Zack Martin gave the Cowboys probably the best offensive line in the NFL for about a 3-year span or so. Elliott led the NFL in rushing twice. So at the end of the day, unfortunately, a wasted Hall of Fame career because that's how it works in Dallas now. So,
oof. Little dig to Big D there. Wow.
I mean,
you're not wrong. I'm just saying. I didn't expect that to be how you ended that particular speech.
I know.
So
he's great. He's probably because of the Notre Dame connection, but one of my all-time favorite Cowboys. Because of just how great he was and how consistent. Like how many times, Jesse, over the years, when they were having trouble, running the ball, would I text, just run behind 70? Like this isn't complicated. Run behind 70 and get
then they
this
finally
yard.
would, and they would be successful every time.
And then go away from it.
That man could move 2 human beings at the same time.
Yes. John, they don't allow white whales in the pool. I saw a sign, so I won't be going to the pool.
Wow.
Anytime soon.
You could at least go sunbathe.
I don't know about that.
All right. I'm going to throw one in here.
Okay.
Women's basketball. I'm asking you this question, Sean, since you're the expert. So, scale of 1 to 10, the chances that you see that Notre Dame has of being the overall number 1 seed. And the reason I'm asking this question is because the last game that was on TV was the Duke game, and I'm watching, and they throw up this graphic, and of course ESPN has some sort of a computer model that they have. And Notre Dame, even though they were the number one team in the country, had the fourth best percentage of getting the overall number one seed, which I thought was heresy. So what are your thoughts?
They put out that, the NCAA put out that top 16, pre-tournament thing on Sunday, and they're going to put out one more here within, I think, a week or two. Notre Dame was the number 4 seed in that. And I'm trying to remember. So UCLA was number 1. They had just suffered their first loss. South Carolina was number 2. Now, South Carolina's lost since then. Texas 3, Notre Dame 4. So, those would be the top 4 seeds. So much of this, it looks like, just like looking at things, in the net rankings, UConn is number 1 in the net rankings, but they're only 4-3 in terms of quad 1 victories. And I think so much of this is being based on what your quad 1, what your record is against quad 1 teams, because Texas is 11-2, South Carolina is 10-3, and UCLA is 9-1, but Notre Dame 6-2 right now. And at the time this came out, they were only 5-2. So they're, they're 6-2. I'm not overly optimistic because of the limited opportunities that Notre Dame is going to have to get more quad 1 wins. Like if they beat NC State, especially because it's a road game Sunday, that's a quad 1 win. But then you've only got probably 2 more opportunities. It would be in the semifinal and the championship game of the ACC tournament, to get a couple more quad 1 wins. And it just feels like that's what this is weighted on, what your quad 1 record is. And because, Texas and South Carolina basically have twice as many quad 1 wins as Notre Dame, I put this at probably a 3 or a 4. They're still going to get a number 1 seed, but I just don't think they're going to be number 1 overall. But, the other side of this is, look, we were all politicking Notre Dame football. They need to be the number 5 seed. Well, the path ended up being okay when they were the 7 seed instead of the 5 seed. So go ahead.
I just don't go ahead, Jess. Sorry.
So you bring up the quad 1 stuff. I'm going to make up my own stat here and call it the quad 0. Notre Dame is 3-0 against top 5 teams in the country, and no one else can say that. And I get it. They don't have many, as many maybe quad 1 victories, but look at what they are doing in those victories and the rest of their schedule. They're winning by 27 points per game as a scoring margin, and they're 3-0 against the top 5 in the country. So, I feel like women's basketball being kind of top heavy like it is, top 10, top 15 or really when you start to see the really good teams, Notre Dame is beating the best of the best. They're not beating kind of the best. I think having more success against that top 5.
They're beating the best of the best, but they're not beating the best.
Yeah,
that's a quote for the wall.
It is.
They're beating the best teams in the top teams in the country. I guess is what I'm ultimately trying to say. When you have wins over Texas, USC, and UConn, and all of those teams are in the top 5, I just don't see how you can't be the number 1 overall, assuming all things take care of itself the rest of the season.
The only thing I don't like about that projection, and again, it's a projection, it's going to change. I mean, already teams have lost that are in that top 16, so it's going to change. The only thing I don't like about it is I don't like Notre Dame and USC being in the same, whatever region,
in the same region,
I guess.
Yeah, which potentially will happen.
Yeah, I don't like that. Could it happen? Sure. I just think that they're doing a disservice to Notre Dame. Now, granted, being in the 4 slot of the number 1 seeds, that's going to happen. You're going to get the best number 2 seed, I suppose, in your region. I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't. That's not a friendly draw for Notre Dame, in my opinion. I'm not saying they can't beat USC again because they already did it and they did it on their floor. Yeah. But if it's it's Spokane, Washington, it's not down the street, but it's at least on the same side of the country.
Ultimately, other than who ends up being the 2 and 3 seeds in your region, it's like there's not going to be any kind of home court advantage to this at
Yeah,
all
Spokane,
because
Washington, yeah.
because they're playing in Spokane, Washington, and Birmingham, Alabama.
Right.
So like from Notre Dame's perspective, there's going to be zero advantage. And if you end up, it's like if South Carolina were to drop out of the one line and into a two line, and you ended up with them, then there could be a huge disadvantage if you're playing down in Birmingham, Alabama, because you're 100%. So close to South Carolina.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out. I just don't like the way it sits at the moment at all.
Connor says, how can head-to-head not trump Q1 wins? You'd have to ask the committee, and they haven't had to answer.
Right. I mean, they played Texas. But, they should be ranked
ahead of Texas. The other side of this, too, is, like Texas and South Carolina have played each other twice, and they've split those games. And then, like, UConn is part of the mix as well. Like they just beat South Carolina. So, like, some of that, and again, when you've got twice as many quad one wins, and, while Notre Dame has losses to, one ranked team in TCU, Utah is currently not ranked, even though that is considered a quad, one game. It was a neutral site and the whole thing. Those other teams essentially have losses to each other. You know what I mean? So like, I think that they're weighting that as well. Like you can talk about quality, the bottom line is, Notre Dame kind of has the equivalent of Notre Dame football's Northern Illinois, not quite, to that extent, but the fact that like who they lost to, not quite as good as who UCLA and South Carolina and Texas have lost to, with the exception of obviously Notre Dame having the head-to-head with USC and Texas. I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just looking at what the rationale that has to be their rationale, based on where Notre Dame is. But again, you're splitting hairs because they're still in that one line. And I do think, like, if they win out, I think that they're going to have I give them a chance to be up there at the top. But like, again, like remember SEC tournament, there's going to be chances for more quad one wins for Texas and South Carolina in those schools as well. So that seems to be what's holding them back.
All right. I understand it. I don't have to like it.
None of us do.
So question is, do you want to go to Birmingham or you want to go to Spokane? Or it doesn't even matter because it's
by default, I would take Birmingham just because it's a little bit closer.
Sure, maybe warmer.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, like they've been out there to Spokane before, and I don't think it's necessarily the easiest place to get to. It's kind of crazy that they're flying teams out there.
Yeah, no doubt.
So the NHL's Four Nations face-off was a smashing success as an alternative to the NHL All-Star Game. Could Major League Baseball come up with something similar to replace its All-Star Game? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that this is something that could translate across a lot of sports, especially as we start to see more international players kind of integrate into MLB, NBA, whatever it might be. I think the hardest one you'd have time with is NFL because there's not a lot of international players in the NFL. But I think you could very well split the if baseball did their own version of Four Nations. I think you could do United States, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, and Cuba, and that's just kind of the most percent per roster share, and it's kind of like a World Baseball Classic light. Or an Olympics light, but instead you do it during the All-Star Game break and give, I think ultimately what the fans crave is they don't want the All-Star break just to be a time for the guys to kind of kick their feet up and relax. They still want to see competitive sports amongst the best of the best. And so I think if you broke baseball into kind of those four countries that I just talked about, you could definitely make something happen.
The problem is they already do that. It's called the World Baseball Classic. It's just before the season starts. It would be very difficult to do it for baseball because of how long the baseball season is and the amount of days that you would have to take off in order to
how long would you shut it down?
My exact point. The reason they did it with hockey, and it makes perfect sense, is that this is a precursor to what they're going to do with the Olympics and what they're going to do with the World Cup. So it's every 2 years, they're going to take 2 weeks off. And so this was just kind of hey, let's give it a trial run, see what it's like, and get everybody fired up. And I think it blew up way bigger than they even thought that it would, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I had over 9 million people watching that game last night, myself included. And I don't watch hockey. I don't like it. But I was really into last night's game. You know what I mean?
That Canadian goalie, man, he was amazing there.
Dude, he had
the third period and an overtime.
He had a Craig, from Team USA in 1980. Like, that was his game. Like, he just was so good. He couldn't. How many open opportunities did the USA have in that overtime? And they just could not capitalize. And Canada got one shot and they hit it. Like, anyway. But I think it would be very difficult to do it the way that hockey did it. It would just be very difficult. I don't know that you could.
My idea would be, because look, like I saw John say, why mess with baseball tradition? John doesn't like to mess with any tradition. He just wants everything to be the same forever. I get that.
Get off John's lawn, and I have no problem with that.
That's right. But there's not a whole lot of interest in the Major League Baseball All-Star game. Now, if you just want to, an exhibition game, you want to see the players go out there and, whatever. Okay, viewership is not that great. I'm sure that Major League Baseball wouldn't mind coming up with something. And when we're going to talk more about TV stuff here in a second, I'm sure they wouldn't mind something that could drum up some good ratings for baseball, because God knows baseball needs it at this point. Here's my idea. Like, start the World Baseball Classic thing in spring training, play X amount of games or whatever, finish it during the All-Star break.
Oh, basically. Interesting.
So you don't need to play as much during the All-Star break. You just have to figure out, how long your break's going to be and that kind of thing. Like maybe the semifinals and the finals are during.
So the preseason would be like the trials, and the All-Star break would be the finals.
Right.
I could get on board with that. I think that's actually not a terrible idea there, Sean Stires.
Thank you.
The only issue that I would have with that is, what if you've got, because like right now, the way they do it, it's kind of everybody gets a ribbon. Like there has to be one guy from every team and, that kind of stuff.
Right.
That you're not going to be rewarded for your play in the first half of the season that way, because those teams have already been put together.
Sure. That's true. So that
would be my only pushback. Game? Like if I was playing devil's advocate.
Do a home run derby, because everyone likes the derby better than the game anyway. Do a home run derby.
That's true.
And maybe do some more stuff around the derby, and then
and then you have. I like your idea. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, and I get it.
I get it.
Because then who are you going to involve and all that kind of stuff?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I could get on board with that. Look, I think there's a lot to be said for country pride. You know what I mean? And like getting excited about your country and all of those different things. I mean, that's what
just naturally makes everything more competitive.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. It was awesome last night.
And that's what the fans want. They want to see the best players being competitive.
Yeah.
And I think that you would also get, like if Jesse was saying, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, whoever, where, so many Major League Baseball players are from. I think that you would get a lot of those, just like when the World Cup, comes to North America. And I think that you would get a lot of those fans who would travel to be part of it as well. And I think they like you see some of those games that take place during the World Baseball Classic in South America and some of those spots. Like, I think the atmosphere would just be electric for those games. It'd be 10 times what you even get for a World Series game, I think.
If you're doing it for ratings, if the USA doesn't make it to the championship, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're in trouble. Right.
But, that's a chance you take, obviously. There was no guarantee the United States was going to make it into the
finals. US and Canada were going to play.
Right.
But look what we got. Yeah.
If they don't play in that championship game, if it's not United States and Canada, you're not getting 9.3 million viewers.
Exactly. Not nearly the excitement that you're getting on ESPN and everybody else talking about it going into the game.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
But it was awesome. It was a really cool. And I didn't really I'd heard about it, just like some things that like Four Nations face off, and I really wasn't even sure what it was like before it happened.
No,
and then as it started happening, it was like, oh, well, that actually sounds kind of cool. And then you've got the US and Canada playing, and it's like, that's really cool. So
Vince, I hate to be this guy, but what did I tell you last night when we were signing off the show?
You said Canada was going to win because you're not an American. That's what
There
you
it
said.
is.
That's what you said. I still don't forgive you for that.
Father David, I'm sure he's very excited.
He's not on the show tonight, so he
I
must be
saw that.
Celebrating. He's dipping into that Sacramento wine. He's having some fun.
Have a little bit of the sacrament. Get it while it's hot. So speaking of Major League Baseball, ESPN informed Major League Baseball that the sports network will opt out of the last 2 years of the TV contract with MLB that includes Sunday Night Baseball, the All-Star Home Run Derby, and first-round wild card playoff series. ESPN would have paid MLB $550 million per season over the next 2 years, so over $1 billion total for this. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred says it's a mutual parting of the ways because he didn't think it's beneficial to baseball to accept a smaller deal to remain on a shrinking platform. That is a quote from him there at the end. So do you buy or sell the spin from Rob Manfred?
So I sell the spin, but I love that they did it. I think.
Really?
Yeah, I sell the spin. I think that Manfred kind of realized that what a lot of people probably my age think is I think ESPN or baseball on ESPN is horrifically boring.
But don't you think you're going to have that problem on any national platform? Because you're saying it's going to be better off like on another platform.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's not necessarily the platform. I think it's the way that the production of the way it's put together and the people who are doing the games. Like A-Rod, I had no interest in listening to do A-Rod.
No, I mean, A-Rod's a major problem. Like why ESPN has forced A-Rod down America's throats.
Or Mendoza,
and a
lot of people don't like her. It's just, I think it's who they were selecting to do the actual, broadcast analyzing of the game. Like growing up, Sunday Night Baseball was one of my favorite things, and that's the thing is like the transition of how bad ESPN has let the product transform over the years is I think the overall frustration. And I don't think they're seeing any inclination in numbers or ratings. And so it's like, it's time to try to find a way to bring a freshness to baseball. And I think that's the way you can do it is introducing new faces, new names, new broadcasters, people who might bring more excitement to the game. And so that's the boat that I'm in.
But the problem is, and this is one of the things, that has kind of, I think, irked ESPN a little bit as well, is baseball has devalued the ESPN at, national games as a product because they've sold these national streaming packages the last couple of years to Amazon and to Apple. So like they're trying to do other things, but it hasn't benefited them.
But wouldn't you much rather listen to, say it's full baseball season, right? Wouldn't you rather listen to Joe Buck do a baseball game once a week than Alex Rodriguez?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, one's
I think that's what it is.
One's an analyst anyway. But
well, yeah, but I'm still saying like a broadcast booth that has Joe Buck compared to what Michael Kay and Alex Rodriguez. Like, come on, it's a no-brainer in my opinion. And I'm not. Even though
ESPN, and he went to ESPN saying he wasn't going to do baseball. That was part of the deal. Even though he's going to do season opener this year for ESPN, but that's the first baseball game he's done, I think, in 3 years since he's been at ESPN. Joe Buck.
Joe Buck. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll let Vince answer before I give my spiel. What do you think, Vince?
Pretty simple. I sell it all the way around. I think it's spin, number one. I don't think it's very good spin, and I also don't think he's gonna be able to get the deal that he thinks he's gonna be able to get someplace else. Yeah, because I don't think Fox, CBS, NBC, name the regular stations, they're not going to buy into this because they're not going to give up primetime slots for baseball. They're just not going to do it. You know what I mean? It's too regional of a situation for a network to take care to get. They're not going to do it. So where are you going to get that money from? Where are you going to get $550 million from?
Jesse, did you have something to add? I don't know what all these hand signals are.
Time out.
I think TNT is going to get baseball.
They may,
I mean,
but
they've
they're not
already
going to
got
get
some.
$500
TBS
million.
has some.
They're
not going to pay near, because the only thing funnier than Manfred trying to spin it like this is there are actually some people who believe it. Like I was reading, like some people actually, basically just because ESPN, and a lot of people obviously don't like ESPN. Like this is George Costanza. You're not breaking up with me because I'm breaking up with you. That's what Rob Manfred, did
Pretty
ultimately.
much.
Yeah, and I mean, and I say this, we're all on the same page, but I say it with 100% certainty because you guys know that I listen to a lot of sports media broadcasts.
Yep.
And Andrew Marchand, who's one of the big, names in the space, and Jimmy Traina, who's another one in the sports media, like they've been talking about this. Like I listened to 2 podcasts this week that like this is going to happen this week, and literally, there it is. It happened. That ESPN was going to opt out, and so Manfred's trying to do damage control, and baseball owners are mad because they actually think they should be getting more than the $550 million because the NFL and the NBA have both, recently, got these big, TV contracts. And it's like, do you not understand that, ESPN isn't just dialing down its coverage of baseball because, like that's what they want to do. They're doing it because fewer and fewer people are watching. Like I used to watch Baseball Tonight all the time. And then, it went to like once a week. And then, like it went from like 3 or 4 times a week, it seemed like, to, they kept cutting it back. They did away with it. Virtually nobody, like the amount of time we're given to baseball right now is much more than pretty much anyone nationally gives to baseball because it's just not a topic anymore.
Well, why do you think they got the pitch clock, made the bases bigger? Like
Right. And so I again, like from the baseball perspective, there's no way that this was their idea. They're mad because they weren't getting more money, and the ESPN is like, well, we don't even want to give you this much money. We want to pay you less money. And so they're like, well, we're just, so like if it is mutual, that was the mutual, that they came to that agreement, but baseball is also an everyday sport. And, what happens every year, like the playoffs are actually a big TV package. Like there's actually a lot of interest in baseball's postseason, but 162 games are on during the regular season. What happens as soon as the playoff rolls around? Everyone bitches because, this announcer is against my team because, I'm used to listening to my broadcast team on local RSNs 162 games a year, so like that's part of the problem as well as the saturation that you have. You can watch a baseball game any day of the week. And what's so much different about a Sunday night ESPN broadcast or on any network, when you can watch those games every night if you're a diehard baseball fan. This
just means more John Sciambi for me as a Cubs
you
fan.
Love
because
Boog.
Now
you're a huge Boog fan.
Now he's got no more ESPN duties.
There you go.
Ooh, good call.
Do you guys want to go just roll right into the TV broadcast thing?
We might as well.
I'm ready. I have it in my head. I'm ready.
Okay. So I've been thinking about this for a while, and obviously, like I thought about this before the Super Bowl, and this is the first time the 3 of us have been together. So I've been kind of saving this for all 3 of us being here, and I didn't want to put it off, like too far after the football season was over. So these are the number 1 TV broadcast teams for each of the networks for NFL football games.
Okay. I get it.
You got Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit on Amazon, Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady on Fox, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman on ESPN, Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth on NBC, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo on CBS. So how do you rank those booths? What is the top booth? What is the bottom booth?
I think we should go around the horn 1 through 5.
So just go through them and then discuss.
Everyone does 1, and then everyone does 2, 3, 4, and then we talk about it after.
Well, let's start at the bottom. Let's start with the no
worst
good ones. Yeah, absolutely. You want to start with your best. You say the best for last.
So that you're going to make Jesse think.
Sean Stires, it's your show. You decide.
I don't know. I'm torn.
Ooh.
I think we got to start with the worst and work up.
Okay. I'll start us.
Okay.
For me,
so now are we just going to go around, or are we going to explain, or we're going to do the ranking and then discuss the whole thing about who's good, who's bad at the end?
Let's do the ranking and then we can discuss why. Because
Okay.
I don't have like a novel about each team.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Number 5.
I have to go Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit.
I concur. Bottom of the list.
Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady.
Ooh, Vince really does hate Tom Brady. Okay.
That's my number 5. That's my
number 4.
Burkhardt and Tom Brady.
Burkhardt, Brady. I'm going to go Tirico Collinsworth.
Really?
Number 4. Yeah. I like Tirico. That is out on Collinsworth.
Michaels Herbstreit is my number 4. So
okay.
Yeah. Yep.
See, I like old Al Michaels. I don't like grouchy old Al Michaels.
Exactly.
Herbstreit.
That's exactly right. He's very crotchety these days, and that's
He's
takes
crotchety,
away.
Booth just lacks energy. Like we're getting sidetracked. After we just said we were going to go around and then
Kirk Herbstreit talks too much. He thinks he knows just too much sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's 4.
Okay, so that's 4. What's your 3?
Okay.
My 3 would be Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth.
Okay.
Agreed.
My 3 is Burkhardt, Brady.
So our bottom 3 are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Number
and
2
Vince,
would
what
be
was
Buck
yours?
and
I'm
Aikman.
sorry.
No, Tirico Collinsworth is my 3rd.
Is your 3? Okay, so we're not that far off.
Yep.
So then that leaves us with Buck Aikman, Nance Romo,
and we have them.
and CBS.
All 3 of us have those 2, either 1 or 2. So
right.
Yeah. So number 2, Jesse, who you got?
Just go ahead and give both of yours, your 2 and your 1.
Buck and Aikman 2, Nance and Romo 1.
Okay.
I am the opposite. I am Nance Romo 2. I am Buck Aikman 1.
Me too. I agree with Vince. Buck Aikman number 1, Nance Romo number 2.
See, Aikman and Romo are, and it's not just because they're former Cowboys quarterbacks. They're a wash for me. And so it comes down to who do I like better?
Ooh.
Who do I like better, Jim Nance or Joe Buck? And I like Jim Nance better in NFL football than I do Joe Buck.
That's a statement. Okay.
That is. I think, like, to me, like Joe Buck, Troy Aikman is probably like the best big time, broadcast team around, like in any sport.
It was really close for me. Don't get me wrong. Like it's not like it's just like this.
Nance is just, and I don't want this to sound mean because, like we all get older, but Nance just feels like he's getting older and is like a little bit, sort of like less on it, in touch with everything. Sometimes like that broadcast doesn't always, sort of jive together. And Romo can be part of that as well, because he's a little bit, of a wild card just with the way he talks and, like the extemporaneous thinking and stuff like that. But I just feel like Buck Aikman is far and away the best. Like I don't like the fact that they're on Monday night because I miss having them do Cowboys games. And like, you're only going to get a couple Cowboys games on Monday Night Football and, less if they're bad, obviously. But when they were on Fox, you'd get like half the schedule, it seemed like, where you'd have Buck and Aikman doing it. So I miss those guys doing it.
I think Joe Buck is really, really good. And I think he's good at baseball. I think he's good at football. And I think Aikman has just gotten so good at what he does. I mean, he just is. Is he in the Hall of Fame for football? He's got to be, right?
Aikman? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously he's a Hall of Fame football player, but he's just as good of a broadcaster, in my opinion. Like his second career, he's hitting it out of the park.
So Vince, Burkhardt Brady is last place for you. And I think Burkhardt is a good play-by-play announcer. I don't think he is the level of Buck or Tirico. I think he's better than Al Michaels now. Now, Al Michaels, historically, you can make a case that he's the best network TV play-by-play guy ever. But for right now, again, like he's been around for a while. And, he had to announce at the end of the season, I'm coming back for next year. It's like, how long is he going to be around? So as a play-by-play guy, Burkhardt is just a notch below those other guys. I think he is probably on the same level as Nance, but I mean, basically, is it Brady that, kills that whole booth for you, Vince?
Yeah, it does. I mean, he needs more seasoning. He needs, talk to me in 5 years if he's still doing it. You know what I mean? And then that group, that pairing might go up. But right now, they didn't do him any favors making him the number one guy. That's the thing I think is my biggest issue with the whole thing. Like, he should not have been promoted to the number one booth. Like, let him do some regional games first. Let him get his feet wet. Let him do his thing for a little while. Then you put him in the number one booth. Like, I had a problem with the way they did it, and he didn't really hit it out of the park either. So, he didn't deserve it in either way. You know what I mean? So it just brings him down for me.
Anything to add, Jess?
I don't mind Kevin Burkhardt. I don't think he's 100% in on the games he does sometimes. I think he can know more and be more knowledgeable and be better prepared. I think that's my biggest knock on Kevin Burkhardt. I never feel like Joe Buck, Mike Tirico, or Jim Nance are underprepared comparatively.
I agree.
I think Al Michaels is just
but that's a really good point. For whatever, nitpicks I'm going to have of Nance or Michaels or anyone else, those guys are definitely, all of those guys are prepared. I would agree with that.
And that's not Burkhardt's fault. He's kind of pulled in a lot of directions, within Fox and that sort of thing. And then you start, you look at the color commentator. I've never really had a good taste for Kirk Herbstreit. I love Troy Aikman. Chris Collinsworth's getting corny over the years, but I don't mind him as much as other people. I think a lot more people have a problem with him, but I don't mind it at the end of the day.
It's not that I have a problem, but it's like, look, not every guy is the greatest player ever, and that's how he acts most of the time. Like that's your stick, shtick. Like, not every guy is the greatest player. Oh, I love this guy. Mike, I don't know what to say. He's the great. Did you see that throw? That's the greatest throw I've ever seen. It's like, okay, calm down. We're talking about Baker Mayfield now. It's like, come on.
He's great. He's amazing.
Yeah, that's right. The Michaels Herbstreit, I really, I realize a lot of people hate on Herbstreit because of college football, but I really do feel like as a college football analyst, game analyst, I think he is the better part of that ESPN booth along with Fowler. I think he's really good. He has the proper excitement level. Like we've talked about, the crying after the championship game and all that, take that out of the equation. I feel like everything else, he's a good analyst. I just feel like watching those Thursday night games, man, like that broadcast, sometimes you could literally, have a better time watching the paint dry in the corner, of your room. It is just such a low energy booth. And that's, I have a hard time with. And even it not just them, the way it's produced, it seems like you don't get as much crowd noise and things like that. I don't know, how many Amazon games you guys have watched, but
a couple.
I just feel like the whole thing is not up there.
Oh, and the other issue I
watch
have
about every NFL game.
I know you will. That's again why I was saving this to make sure when you were on the show as well.
I watch every game, no matter how bad it is.
I think one of my biggest issues is they are spreading him too thin, and I
think so too.
And that's not even his fault, to be honest with you.
Well, it is, because he didn't have.
He's taking
the
it
Amazon
on.
job.
Sure. That fair enough. I just think him doing NFL games, college game day, the biggest college game of the weekend. Dude, be with your family, man. You don't have to put out the graphic every week of how many miles you're putting on the plane with your support dog. You can't
well, that's a whole
do
other story, is taking the dog around with him. And
you can't do a good job, in my opinion, spreading yourself that thin. But Amazon hired him anyway because he's a name.
Yes.
This is what made me the most excited about Herbstreit, though, just to be devil's advocate, because he sees the top players in college. So you would think he would have the most knowledge and preparation, because he sees it every weekend. He sees the top players in college, and then majority of that pool that comes to the NFL is coming from the games that he's doing, because he
sees the top
games
in the NFL. He does. I mean, in college, he doesn't see all the top players.
I get that, but I'm just saying I thought he would be better because he is more immersed in the college football landscape than anyone else in these broadcast booths. And so I was a bit disappointed because of that reason. I thought he'd maybe bring a different kind of energy to the NFL.
But I think that's one of the issues is he only knows the big players that he followed in college.
Right.
I don't feel like he knows enough of the NFL players who are coming from other schools.
I don't know how much NFL games he watched before he started doing NFL games.
That's exactly my point. Like I just think he knows the big names and that's about it.
Right. So exactly.
His analysis is very surface level for me.
Yeah, and like the opposite of that, like Troy Aikman is elite when it comes to all of this. Both in, I think he's got the reputation now because he's been around, so long. He's like, I'm the guy who don't give 2 Fs. I'm just gonna let it fly. That's the reputation that he's got. But he also knows how to explain the game, but not be, completely redundant about it. It just explain it, like very plain, but also, high level, and just his delivery is very good. And I think that, the fact that Buck and Aikman have been together for so long as well, because like you look at these booths, they've definitely been together the longest of any of them, 20 plus years. And you can tell. Yeah.
So I think a fun question, if you could take any of these 5 pairings and make it and pool them together and you could pick any booth from them, who would you pick?
Buck Aikman. That's still like, if you're saying I could take all the play-by-play guys, all the color guys, and take the best of the two, it's Buck Aikman still for me.
It's probably Tirico and Aikman for me.
I would go Buck Aikman. Who'd you say, Tirico and who?
Aikman.
You go Tirico Aikman? That's interesting.
Or Tirico Romo.
I would go actually Burkhart Romo. I think Romo and Burkhart together would be a really quality broadcast team.
I could agree with that.
I think that would, because I think that Romo's kind of looseness, not that, like Burkhart, I think he's got some of that there.
Romo can bridge that gap better.
Yeah, exactly. And they're obviously closer in age, than Romo and Nance. But Nance and Romo get along really well. And like
they do.
Yeah. No, they
like Romo, has got some criticism obviously in the last few years, and Nance always goes to bat for him and stands up for him and the whole thing. So I think that like Nance, like we've talked about this before, Vince, with like having a veteran play-by-play guy with a first-time analyst, like that really helps out, because even Burkhart, like he's been around, but not as long as a guy like Nance, not as long as a guy like Tirico. That really helped out, I think, Tony Romo, having a guy like Jim Nance.
Look, if we're gonna go with 20 years of experience being together, I'm going with Stires DeDario. Let's put him in there. Let's just make this happen. Let's just make it happen. We've been doing games together for 20 years. It's time. It's time to get called up to the show.
Okay, so here's my X Factor question. Tom Brady, of course, bumped Greg Olsen out of the Fox #1 booth with Burkhart. So here's my question to you. Olsen's sitting out there. He's the #2 Fox guy right now. If you looked at these top 5 booths here, the #1 booths, which would Olsen make better if you subbed him in for one of the analysts?
This is pretty easy. I'd go with the Michaels Herbstreit and the Burkhart Brady.
Yeah.
Agree on both.
Completely agree with both.
I think the rest I would leave.
Yep.
I think
I would too.
I think though, like the Tirico.
Don't say Collinsworth.
No, Tirico Olsen, it wouldn't be terrible. I will give you that too.
It wouldn't be terrible, but would it really be an upgrade between Tirico and Collinsworth?
Yeah. It's a toss-up. That's why I go with the other two more than that one. But yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah. I think Brady, like you
pains me to say that because I'm not an Olsen guy.
No, that's true. Olsen hates the Cowboys, so Jesse.
There we go.
At least that's what Jesse.
I'll plug it every time. You call me crazy, but he hates the Cowboys, and he gets his jabs in no matter what.
That Amazon booth here in a couple years, like, what's that going to look like? Because Michaels is going to retire sooner than later. I think Herbstreit it's either 2 or 3 years left on the contract. So like 3 years from now, you could potentially see like Ian Eagle and Greg Olson in that booth, maybe.
Great booth.
Depending
That
on
would be solid. That would be
Give me
solid.
any of the Eagles, and I'm on board.
Yeah, for sure. Because Ian Eagle, I think, I don't know if he's already signed a contract, but like I think he's going to start calling NBA games for him next year when Amazon starts doing NBA. So he's already going to be working for him. So I think that he's probably the successor for Thursday Night Football. And I think that like Olsen, that would be a really intriguing little booth if they did that. And
Agreed.
Adam Amin.
There's a chance that like Netflix is, going to get bigger in the game. So didn't Olsen do one of the Netflix games on Christmas Day? Pretty sure he did.
I don't remember. There was so many like random streamed games like that I can't keep it all straight, to be perfectly honest with you.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. I think we kind of tapered there.
Can't believe we already got through the show.
I know. I
It's Friday Fire, baby.
I left a few questions out, actually. Matt wanted to know if Ed Hockley is subbing for me tonight.
That's a compliment. He's jacked.
Yeah, he's talking about the gun show when you were like pointing something out, like, with the tat and everything.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
You're putting it all together there, Stires.
All right. I did get my pump this afternoon. So
see, there you go.
Andre had a few comments. I forgot that these were sitting here. He's coming for Jesse with some whiteboard this summer to get him ready. It's like everybody wants the whiteboard, and Jesse's like, I have to work more if I do the whiteboard.
Maybe I'll whiteboard some basketball plays that can work for me this Saturday.
There you go. Get on top of that.
10-year-olds.
Andre also wanted to know which of the injured players coming back the most important for Notre Dame's success this year. I think I'd put Boubacar Traore at the top of my list.
Do we get to count what's his name that came
Charles
back and
Jagasol?
played? Yeah, do we get to count Jagasol?
Yeah, I think
that's my pick.
Because he only played in a couple games. Yeah,
that would be mine as well.
And then Andre said, I believe these last two women's basketball games versus NC State and Louisville are going to be really important chances for them to be the number one seed in the NCAA.
Wow.
tournament. Louisville's coming on strong.
Andre.
They're actually in fourth place right now in the ACC.
And you know what they are? Consistently annoying, and they hate Notre Dame.
They are. And a week from Sunday, they will visit Notre Dame.
That's
See
true.
it one more time. The only
At least Van Lith doesn't play there anymore.
That's true.
Isn't it like her third school, isn't she?
Yeah, but the amount of this that she did at Louisville.
It was hype. And she did it at LSU as well. I don't know that she's doing it this year. Who's she playing for?
They beat Notre Dame, so that's kind of the crazy
TCU.
part.
That's we saw her down in the Cayman Islands, actually.
That's right.
I don't remember her talking as much in that game, but that's a fog. It's a distant memory.
No one remembers the Cayman Islands.
That's right.
That was 19 wins ago.
That's right.
19 wins ago.
There you go. All right. Well, great stuff tonight, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll be at North Carolina State Sunday. Actually, we're getting there tomorrow. We're leaving tomorrow morning, but I'll be there. Jesse, what time is your game Saturday?
Tomorrow?
Is that tomorrow? That is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. What time's your game?
We play at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good old rec sports nights in the morning on the weekends. Mm-hmm. I've got conference championship basketball tonight for high school, and then I've got state finals for wrestling tomorrow. So,
are you going down to Indy?
I'm going.
Right.
This is my first state finals ever. I hear it's unbelievable. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going because two of Dylan's really good friends made the finals, and so we're going to go watch them play. Hopefully, actually, they should be wrestling right about now to see if they're going to wrestle tomorrow.
Well, I was going to say,
we're going.
Do we have a Vinny Freeman update at this point? Do we know?
Vinny Freeman won semi-state. He has not. So
he hasn't wrestled at state yet.
No.
Okay.
It's tonight.
I knew he won semi-state. Right.
Yeah. It's tonight.
Upper weights, he could probably be closer to the end of the day. So
correct. So they took a break, and then they were starting up again at 6:00 with the upper weights. And so he's 170 something, I believe. He used to be 190. He dropped a weight class for the playoffs. So he'll be going here any minute. So
all right,
I'll keep you posted.
Good luck to him. We'll see how it goes. All right.
Yep.
Well, everybody else, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday on IB Nation Sports Talk.
Let's go.